What's up? What's up? What's up? So I want to jump right in and just pick up with where I left off on the last episode. If you've been listening, you know that this month, January, is Stalking Prevention Awareness Month, and I am fast becoming an advocate. But not only an advocate, I am also here to give voice to my story as a victim of intimate partner stalking. I want to say this before I hop right in and continue talking about my story. Um, the last episode that I recorded was the first time that I publicly gave voice to what I've been going through. And I was just so nervous about it. And I want to touch on that a little bit deeper because um, I had an amazing thing happen when I left from recording that day. I'm in the beauty industry and I own a brand of salons and spas. And I happened to go in this day, actually, it was the morning after I recorded. And I've been traveling a lot. And as I mentioned on the previous episode, or maybe I didn't, so I'm going to talk about that, about the fact that I moved around between one state after the other. I did not. So I'll share that on this episode. But I said all that to say, I walked into my spa and I was assisting some of my staff, and one of my long-term clients saw me, and she, so she said, "Hey, I haven't seen you. Where have you been? What's been going on?" And I told her, I said, I've just been going through a lot. It was very vague because you don't just spit out, hey, I've been being stalked and, my life changed. But I basically told her, I said, I've just been going through a lot this past year. And, I don't live here anymore. I live in another state. And she said, "Oh, I didn't know that." And the significance of this is I'm usually very involved in community. I'm usually very involved in the public as both a public servant, a community figure, a speaker, an entrepreneur, all of those things. But enduring the trauma of being stalked literally put me in hiding. And so people just knew that I disappeared. And so when she saw me, I just kind of vaguely alluded to, I've just been dealing with some things. And I also was dealing with my health, my mental health. But I just said my health. And I recently, I talked about the fact that I cut all my hair off due to a nervous breakdown because of the stress. And when I told her it was in reference to my health, she leaned in looking very concerned, and she whispered and she said, you don't have cancer, do you? And I said, "Oh, no, goodness, no." I said, I shaved my hair, and it was the assumption that, where's all your hair? Because again, my hair was down my back, past my shoulders. And all of a sudden now there's no hair. And so she was concerned. And I just took a deep breath and I said, "No, I cut my hair because," and I started to share my story with her and tell her about my experience and why I'd moved and why they had not seen me and what I'd been going through. Here's what I learned from that conversation. The minute I began to share my story with her, she immediately embraced me and leaned in to hear my story. And it also caused her to open up and share her story. One that I would say I did not know of was the fact that she had lost a daughter to stalking. The ex murdered her. And that sent chills through my body when she shared that with me. I didn't know that. And it hit very close to home. And to be speaking with this woman who would patronize my business for many years, and I didn't know this story, gave me more fuel to propel me forward in sharing even more of my story. It is a sign that God was telling me that, Takiya, you're going in the right direction. keep talking. And so we ended up talking for an hour. I mean, she was done with her appointment. She was on her way out the door. But the minute I told her what I was going through, I had her complete and utmost and utter attention. And we talked for an hour about the similarities, about the trauma, about what you go through and how you feel and what you think. And again, one of the biggest things that stood out to me also was the fact that of getting people to believe. And I see that awareness is so necessary. And so I'm grateful for opening up. I'm grateful for finding the courage to do this and to talk about it. And it was just so much came of that. And even in that conversation, she spoke to me about a show. It was a show on, I don't know what, I think it originally launched on Bravo, I think is what I found out, because I did a little digging and a little researching, called Dirty John. And it's the story of, he was married to someone Broderick. I'm sorry, the thought escapes me, but her name was Broderick, Diane Broderick. And, but anyway, so we shared the fact talking about how going through this, how we both started consuming so much material and anything that we can get our eyes and ears and hands on just to educate us. And this was in a series that she started watching, and she's like, you have to watch it, you have to watch it. And so I came home, and hi ho to the TV I go, and I'm drawn into it. And as I started watching this again, all the similarities, I literally felt like I was watching my life on TV unfold with all the similarities. So I just want to continue pushing forward and speaking up and speaking out about this, because the confirmation and the affirmation of what I'm getting is just every time I take one step forward, it's like there's two more giant leaps that happen because of that one step. So I want to pick up where I left off talking about my experience with the stalker. You know, I was thinking about that. We call it my stalker. I was saying my stalker, my stalker. And my is possessive. And I decided that I'm not going to use my, I'm going to use the, because the is definitive and it determines what something is. I'm not going to claim my stalker. So the stalker is the appropriate term that I'm going to use. And as you know, I was talking about the fact that the stalker was actually the ex-husband. I'm sorry, it was the ex-husband. I'm detaching from the possession of the word my. So again, the thing about this on Behind This Smile, as I talk, it's very healing. That's another thing, that once I finish and I hit the end button on my studio, my record the other night, when I released that, I felt so good. I felt so much better. And I realized that the talking is therapy. This is why you go to a therapist and talk. I mean, I'm on set by myself right now, but just talking and letting it out. And again, just how God has been sending people to tell me, Takiya, let it go. And I now have this full understanding that let it go meant let it out. I feel, like they say, about 10 pounds lighter. I am smiling, and it's just like, it's like I've been holding on to this deep, dark secret. And hey, I've been holding on to this deep, dark secret. And now that it's out, I feel so much better about it. And it just felt like therapy. And so I'm going to keep talking. But I left off with talking about how I filed for divorce. The divorce was granted, and a order of protection was put in place. Life was good until it wasn't. So because of all of the things I had endured during the separation, in that process of him just calling and popping up and just trying to intimidate me. By the time the divorce came around, he had pretty much started to achieve what he wanted, which was intimidation, because it got to the place that I will say this. I was thinking about this the other day. I am not afraid of him in that sense of the term, but am I fearful of the unknown? Yes. And I believe there's a difference. So, with the intimidation, he had started to achieve in planting that fear of the unknown in me. And it just really caused me to shut down. I had a friend, have a friend who lived in Tennessee, and she knew a little bit about what I was going through, the stress of it. And she said, "Look, why don't you come visit me? Take a few days away, get away. It's peaceful here, it's beautiful here, and just get an escape." And I said, "You know what? I'll do that. I believe I'll do that." It's supposed to be a 4-day trip, and I went up to Tennessee. And the very first day I got there, I visited a doctor's office, just a routine appointment, a chiropractor. And that day, this doctor had never met him, and he could sense, he could tell just spiritually. He said, "Listen, when you not," he said, "Knoxville is your place of rest. Tennessee is your place of rest. And when you come here, you're supposed to rest." And I'm thinking, when I come here, this is my first time setting foot here. I've actually never been here. I didn't plan on coming back. I'm only here for 4 days, but I did. So this friend invites me out, and I enjoy my time there. I didn't tell a soul that I was there other than the friend who I was visiting. Long story short, I began to get messages insinuating that the stalker knew my whereabouts. "When you get back from this place, you need to come on home." Specifically citing and quoting the city that I was in. So it was things like this that let me know I'm in a whole other state. Have left the East Coast. I'm now in the Southeast, and he's still finding ways to find out my whereabouts. And so about, I would say, the divorce was finalized in July of 2022. I did not come back to the East Coast, and I came back for business. I didn't come back to the East Coast until February of 2023. So what's that? Roughly 9 months. Doing the math in my head, but yeah, a little bit under that. Either way, more than half a year later. I get back in February, and the communication did not start, but the insinuation of knowing my whereabouts started. I ended up I was staying in a hotel in another state. This is in Georgia. Stayed in a hotel in Georgia. I picked up a business contract. Let me, for those of you who didn't hear part one, let me just do a quick synopsis. So I lived in South Carolina. I ended up moving to Tennessee. And then I ended up getting a contract for a client in Georgia. So that's between 3 states. He knew my whereabouts in Tennessee. I get to Georgia working on a business contract, and he showed up to my hotel as a delivery driver. Fortunately, I did not open the door. I just, I innately knew, my spirit just knew. And when there was a knock on the door and I looked through the peephole, sure enough, it was him. And I just immediately, pulled away from the door and called 911. There was a restraining order in place. And the whole time I'm on the phone with 911, mind you, he's knocking on the door. Even at this point, it had not occurred to me, or I guess it had not settled in, that what is he going to do? What was he going to do if you opened that door? What was he going, because see, there weren't any threats. There weren't any threats, not directly to me. I do recall and have recorded a voicemail that during this time frame he left saying that if anybody touched me, that he would hurt them, take their life. So at this time, my mindset still wasn't there. And it wasn't until a friend said to me, he could have shot you when you opened the door. He could have forced himself in the hotel room and done Lord knows what to you. And in that moment, it was like these phases. Like I said, initially, during the separation, I thought, he doesn't want the marriage to end, and he's trying, and he's just being overly annoying in the trying. Then when the police officer said get a restraining order, that made it very real that, okay, maybe he's not going to stop and he's going to keep this just intimidation. But then when you show up to my hotel room 3 states over from where we first started, through South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, and now you're at my hotel door as the delivery person, now we're on another level of where is this going? And mind you, at that point, that was April of 2023, this year, that happened. And we divorced officially in July of 2022. And we separated in December of December 2022. We separated. Gosh, was my divorce just this year? Couldn't be. No, sorry. December 2021. December 2021, separated. Divorce July 2022. Begins and continues stalking up through May of 2023. So it was April. So shows up to the hotel room. So in all of these phases, I'm going through and I'm grasping the reality of what this is becoming. More and more the reality of the fact that this is full-blown aggressive stalking. So after the incident with the hotel room, I filed a police report, and I told the police officer, I said, I need you all to take this seriously. He's shown up to my hotel room. Understand, he's probably parked somewhere watching you and I have this conversation. I have a contract here for a client here in Georgia. It's right up the road. He's going to show up there tomorrow. If he knows that I'm in this hotel room, then he's done his due diligence and he knows why I'm in Georgia and where I'm at in Georgia. So the officer takes the report, makes the report, and the next morning I had a business meeting. And I text my business partner, my business associate, my colleague at the time, and I said, I'll be there in 5 minutes. I'm 5 minutes away. I'll be there in 5 minutes. I get there in 5 minutes. I see my colleague pull into the parking lot in front of the business just before I enter. I enter the parking lot in my vehicle. I pull up and I park next to my colleague. And before I could turn the vehicle off, I sense a presence to my front left side of my vehicle. And with everything in me, without even looking up, I already know. And so instead of looking directly up, I tilt my head just enough where it doesn't look like I'm peering right out, but I'm looking up over my glasses. And I can see that it's the stalker, the ex-husband. My hand starts shaking. I'm thinking, what in the world? I'm literally thinking, you're not making eye contact, but you don't know what he's doing. He can walk up behind you or beside your car. He can shoot you. Like, why is he here? Why is he here? Why won't he stop? Why is he here? In the process of this, I managed to grab my cell phone and start recording. I start recording and I get video of him. At this point, by the time I do all of this, he's walked past my car and he's to the right walking away. And I record and then I dial 911. And I realize as I dial 911, he's walking back towards my car in the front of my car. And at this time, I'm on my Bluetooth. And I know if you've ever pulled up or been in the vicinity of someone on Bluetooth, you feel like you're in the privacy of your vehicle, but it reverberates all throughout. You can hear the conversation. We can hear you. And so I immediately go, oh my gosh, I don't want him to hear that I'm on the 911 call. So I take it off the Bluetooth and I have it on speaker so that I can continue recording. And so I've got the phone like this, slightly tilted in my lap, pointed up towards the window so that I can get him on video. And I'm talking to the 911 operator. This happens 1, 2, 3 times that he walks back and forth in front of my car until, no, maybe more than 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's several times because I remember the last time because he kept walking in front of my car. And the entire time, my colleague's sitting in his truck on his phone. He's not paying attention to this because there's nothing major going on. He just sees a man walking by, going in and out of another establishment parked in front of the car. But I'm trying to record and talk to the 911 operator and get my colleague's attention. And in all of this, I finally realize he wants me to see him. This is a part of the intimidation. This is a part of I want you to know that wherever you are, I'm going to find you. And I want you to see me so that you know that I know where you are. All of this is going on in my brain. And so I finally realize he wants me to see him. And I look up. And I make eye contact. And the minute I make eye contact, I hold my phone up so that I can get a good recording of his face. And when he sees that, he realizes I'm recording him and he turns his head away, walks really quickly, and goes and gets into a company truck. While I am still on the phone with the 911 operator, my car alarm starts to go off. Now, remember, I pulled up. I didn't get a chance to shut my car off. The car's still running. The Bluetooth system was operating. I disconnected the Bluetooth. I'm on speaker with the 911 operator, but my car is still running. How is my alarm going off in a running car that I have the keys to? Let me tell you the significance of this. When my ex and I separated, in the beginning in which I thought it would be amicable. I had a spare key to his vehicle. He had a spare key to my vehicle. When we separated, I returned the key to his vehicle. I asked for the key to my vehicle. He said he didn't have it. We went in circles with me explaining, you do have it. You didn't lose it. He kept saying, no, I gave it back. Do you remember this night and that? No, no, no. I'm positive you have it. But because at this time I thought I was being amicable. I didn't make a big deal about it. We still had personal things we had to separate. So I said, look, when you find it, just get it back to me. He eventually returned the key about a month or 2 months later, before this got to the place that it was now. This was pre-divorce. He had asked me to meet for dinner at a bar so that we could talk, and I'd agreed to. And when we sat down, he slid my key to me. Before we even got the conversation going or anything, oh, I found your key. Slid it across the counter. And I remember saying something to the extent of, I told you had it, or, oh, thanks, or something like that. But I got the key, thought nothing of it. From that time, looking back on it now, it was from that time up through this moment that we're in now, where my car alarm is going off while I'm on the 911 call with the operator. And we've gone through me not understanding or knowing how he knows I'm in Tennessee, or how he knows I'm in another state and I wore a red dress and I went to dinner with girlfriends, or he's popping up in the parking lot at Walmart. It was in that time frame that key was returned back to me. So, tampering, tracking device, something had been done with the key to access my vehicle. The alarm going off on my car, this wasn't the first time. That started, I noticed a pattern anytime I went to my business in South Carolina. Anytime I got on my business property and got in a certain vicinity of a specific area, the alarm would go on, and if I would get near the car, it would turn off. I was being toyed with. I was being played with. I was being intimidated. And so, in this very moment, fast forward back to March. It was March 30th, the end of the month. March 30th, sitting in my car on the 911 call, the operator can hear it. She hears the angst in my voice. She's telling me, okay. And I said to her, he had a key to my car. I said, I'm in my car is running, but he just walked by. He realizes I saw him. He hopped in a truck and he got in that truck and he did whatever with access to the key or my vehicle. It stopped. Just like that, it stopped. I didn't touch it. I didn't do anything. I just told the 911 dispatcher he has access to my car somehow. At that moment, I don't know, it's like liquid courage kicked in, because I realized in that moment, I am going to fight. Not physically, but I am going to fight. I mean, if it came down to it for my life, then yes. But in this moment, I'm going to fight. And by fight, I mean, I'm going to get as much evidence as I possibly can, because you are under a court-ordered order of protection, a restraining order. You showed up to my hotel room. You have violated me in so many different ways by overstepping boundaries. Actually, I've kind of skipped ahead, because I'll talk about it as I have to compartmentalize this. But there were things with my family and friends that he'd done. And so in this moment, when he was making his mistakes, I recently heard a quote for the very first time in my life from Napoleon Bonaparte. I've heard of Napoleon, but this quote says, "Never interrupt your enemies while they are making a mistake." In this moment, he was making big mistakes. And it's like, I guess when I look at it now, like I'm sitting here and visualizing it, it's almost like being in that boxing ring, being in a boxing ring, and someone is just tagging you. They're just throwing blows, and you are just fighting for your life, and you're so weak, and you're down, and you're tired. But then, a good movie, the underdog always gets up right before that last, count. And in that moment, I was the underdog, and I got up because my opponent, the enemy, made a mistake. And I took advantage of the fact that he made a mistake. You violated the order. You've come near me. I've got this phone in my hand to video. I've got the 911 on dispatch hearing what you're doing. And in that moment, everything in me, all this courage flooded in, this strength. And I jumped out my car and I took my cell phone and I recorded everything I could, the vehicle, the company truck he was in, him passing by. Like, I walked out, not towards him, not crazy, because you have to recognize here too, anyone listening, I am not encouraging you to put yourself in imminent danger. That's not what I was doing. At this point, my colleague had finally gotten out the car and saw that I was a little distressed, and I'd started, spitting out, "That's my ex, that's my ex." And he had no clue, but I was just like, he's not supposed to be here. I'm on 911. So I had someone standing by me, and it was a male colleague. So I had someone standing there by me. I had 911 dispatch on the call. I had the phone in my hand. It was like, I felt in that moment, you're surrounded in a situation where you can take advantage of this, where you can win here. And so I just, with that phone, I recorded everything in that moment. And my colleague, they had sent the police out, the 911 dispatch had sent out the police. And here's the importance of this, because I'm gonna talk about a dream that I had also. One officer arrived first, and then two more behind. The first officer on scene was a woman. The second two were men. I will say this, I'll give a huge shout out to the Georgia Police Department, Georgia PD, because again, they took it very seriously. It wasn't just, it's a breakup or it's a dispute between ex-wife, ex-husband. I mean, the moment I said restraining order, I'm telling you, it's like pushing a button and something clicks and kicks in. Now, again, I want to say this is why I'm giving voice to my story. This is why I'm advocating, because there's others out there that I recognize as I've become a part of support groups and in my healing process and my journey. I have seen many people. I have seen many, many, many. Oh, what is this acting up? I have seen many victims in these support groups discuss the fact that they're not taken seriously, discuss the fact that police departments and agencies and organizations are not helping them. And I understand that everyone has not, cannot, possibly will not ever acknowledge the severity of stalking. But sharing our stories and sharing our voices helps bring about awareness, and we change what we can. So it was the fact that this police department, these units that showed up, they did not take it lightly. They jumped into action. The female officer, she was compassionate, she was empathetic, she was understanding, she listened, she walked me through and talked me through everything that they were doing and going to do to ensure that he was caught. She I cooperated with them. I kept, and I say this to anyone under the sound of my voice, I understand a restraining order is said to be just a piece of paper. In essence, it is just a piece of paper. But the action of a restraining order and those who are called to carry out the duty of what it's supposed to execute, that is the importance that we cannot overlook. And I understand that a lot of people have been made to feel that it's just that piece of paper because of the treatment they've received. But again, the awareness that I'm bringing my voice to and coming alongside, this is why we speak up. Because Georgia's getting it right. Every place I've dealt with, even South Carolina got it right. That was the place that it was initially started. So when I showed all of this, so I said that to say, carry it, keep it on you. I understand it may feel like just a piece of paper. No, it in itself is not gonna, you hold it up and go, I got a restraining order. If the perpetrator or the stalker is that mentally, has a mental deficit or psychological illness or vendetta that they don't care to get close enough to you anyway, yeah, then no, that's not. But keep it on you. I kept it everywhere. I still, to this day, in each of my vehicles, at family members' homes. My employees have it on site at my salons and spas. Everyone knows now. And again, it's difficult to talk about, but the more you talk about it, the more you let people know, then the better assisted and prepared you can be. So I had that. I had a copy of it on my cell phone. So when they said, do you have a restrainer? Yes, I do, right here. And they got to work. The two male officers, amazing. I felt like I had big brothers. They were these big old guys too, big guys, beards, just look like officers that you just don't want to mess with on any given day. But as a woman, they were there and that felt good. You know, I remember one of them saying, well, you got a picture of him? And I did. And saying, you know, if we see him, we're going to make sure he takes a ride in the police car, you know. And that was my winning moment. That was my get up moment in this portion of the story. I felt empowered. I felt protected. I felt like the law had gotten it right. Matter of fact, I was praying this morning. I was in my prayer closet. I go in the closet and pray. I don't always go in there, but I tell you, I do it for a few reasons. My biggest reason is peaceful. I get distracted easily. You know, squirrel, that's me during prayer. So I like the dark, the calm, the quiet, the silence. But I was in there this morning and I was just thanking God for even giving me that moment where I felt like justice happened, where a legal system that often fails many, but often fails the African American, the Black community, because and race has nothing to do with it across boundaries of stalking, but just the way that I was treated, because everyone else, the officers, they were not my race. But in that moment, everyone was the human race. And that made a huge difference to me. So I remember being told, we're going to get a warrant, because I had enough proof right there. We didn't have to go to court. I didn't get just a police report and we'll let you know. In that moment, right then and there, they began the work necessary to issue a warrant for his arrest because he broke the restraining order. That cell phone footage, that dispatch call, and the witness of my colleague, it was enough. And me having the restraining order and the picture and the video, because they viewed the video. Video also that was caught. Remember I said we pulled in for a business meeting, so it was at a business location. There were cameras in the business that pointed outside to the front of the business. My colleague, being fast on his feet, said, I can pull up footage on the cell phone to see if anything else. 5 minutes before we both pulled up, there's video footage of him peeking into the business. It took 1 month. It took one and a half months. This happened March 30th. I got a call May 17th. Miss Smith, just wanted to let you know the warrant was executed and we have the perpetrator here in our possession, locked up. I had just come from having coffee with a good friend. I was back in Tennessee because I fled. The last year and a half, I'd gotten used to fleeing, running, hiding. So while the police department did an amazing job, that weight of them finding him and locking him up, or just finding him, there was that. Because again, I was in Georgia and he found my whereabouts there. And for weeks, I was looking over my shoulder and constantly living on edge and wondering, where is he at? Is he watching me? When is the next moment? I was already licensed as a CWP carrier, concealed weapons permit carrier. So I was already licensed in that area and I was already carrying as a woman to be safe, but it didn't feel like enough. Even in those moments, it didn't feel like enough. Every possible scenario would run through my head. And at one point, I even hired executive security, private security, who would keep track on my whereabouts, who would watch the property when I was on site to make sure I was okay. But I'll tell you, even with that, change that started to happen in me, the paranoia, because even in having an executive security, I started to wonder about him. I started to not question him, but within myself, question his intentions, because I felt vulnerable now giving somebody all of my information, location, whereabouts, GPS. You're in the house with me, you're in the business with me. And I just eventually said, I can't do this. I let go of that. The amount of psychological damage and the toll that stalking takes on its victims is insurmountable. I don't believe it's irreparable, but I do believe that it takes work to now live with that. After a year and a half, the stalker was arrested on a court-ordered warrant, and he spent 6.5 months locked up. We're not done with this journey. For legal reasons, I can't discuss some things because we're in the midst of those things. But I will say, I'm here. I'm here. I'm going to fight. I'm going to stand my ground. I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to continue to push forward. And I'm going to continue to show what's behind this smile.